Good evening and welcome to our today's webinar, which is from Gurukul to Gurukool. You will learn the tricks to mastering online teaching. I am Vaibhav Joshi. I'm the manager training and development at Sander Group. Along with me, I have.
Hi, I'm
Hi, I'm
Bhavishani, and I'm the
Bhavishani, and
marketing
I'm the
head at
marketing head
Secura,
at Etiquette.
which is a software solution company designed to bring back control of data for businesses and individuals. So, for the next 60 minutes, we'll be showing you and explaining to you the benefits of online teaching, how you, as educators in the online world, can set up your virtual classrooms. We'll be giving you tips and tricks on how to actually instill that classroom etiquette into your new virtual settings. And of course, showing you how you can have effective online education sessions for you and your students to benefit from. We'll also be running a live Q&A section at the end of the webinar. So if you have any questions, please feel free to enter them into the chat areas if you're joining from YouTube, Facebook, or our LinkedIn. So, Vaibhav, when we were talking a few days ago, one of the things that we've discovered is the whole spectrum of online teaching has changed. A lot of people have started to see benefits, and the whole landscape of online teaching has completely gone into a new spectrum. So, what are your thoughts around this?
I completely agree, Bhavisha. There are a lot of benefits of online teaching. When we got into this situation where we were forced to do online teaching, we thought this is going to last for like 15 days or maybe 20 days. But it's been so many months now. In fact, now it feels like it's going to remain like this forever.
And what have the news articles been saying? What have the press been reporting about this?
Oh, there have been a lot of news articles about this. So, in the next slide, we've got the news articles that tell us that when the pandemic ends, will schools change forever? Virtual classrooms, e-learning are the future. In fact, the HRD Ministry of India has been allocating a lot of funds for online learning. They've recently allocated 10 lakh crore budget for online education. And they have also asked the schools to reimagine teaching and learning online. They've given specific instructions and guidelines on screen time. So basically, we understand that online teaching is here to stay. Since it is here to stay, let us understand what are the benefits of online teaching, and what are the benefits of online learning. We did some research, and in the research we found out that around 71% of students who do online learning showed improvement in confidence or increased confidence. 31% of these students showed increase in homework completion, 14% showed increase in grades, and 17% showed reduction in drop or withdrawal rate, which clearly shows that online teaching has a lot of effect on education and knowledge transfer for students. So it's very beneficial for students. Not only is this beneficial for students but also teachers. There are a lot of benefits for online teaching for teachers. The first benefit for online teaching is time and location flexibility. A teacher can choose to teach at any time that suits him or her, especially for working professionals and homemakers. Online teaching is a boon where classes can be taken in evenings or on weekends. There's no time wastage unless the traditional classroom teaching where a teacher has to travel all the way to a coaching center or institute for taking classes. Here, the teacher can practically take the classes from the comfort of his or her home. The second benefit, obviously, is the convenience. Online teaching doesn't require any traveling overhead. A teacher can teach right while sitting at his or her home. Um, Third benefit is more training opportunities. An education medium without any time and location constraints obviously paves the way significantly, and gives more opportunities for teachers. For example, I am bound here in Mumbai, but I know that I have a lot of talent and I can teach in any of these international universities. Because of the geographical constraints, I can't move abroad and teach anywhere else. But if I'm doing online teaching and if I'm taking online classes, I can be teaching in a university in London or Singapore or New York. Um, a few other benefits: better organization skills. Unless in a traditional classroom, organization is very difficult. Managing a class, taking the attendance is very difficult. But when you use a medium like this, or which is online teaching, and if you use the correct app, organization becomes very easy. um, you know Such as, if you use an app like Sums gives the ability to take online attendance, and this reduces the stress of teacher. The administrative stress is gone, and now the teachers can simply concentrate on the real part, which is knowledge transfer. The another benefit, obviously, is administration, um, wherein online teaching also helps in better administration. One can clearly imagine the administrative benefits to a teacher in a traditional classroom while teaching online. Classroom then while teaching online. Unlike classroom teaching, a teacher doesn't have to keep track of multiple students. This decreases the administrative overhead while improving the concentration and performance of the teacher. Correct. A majority of online teachers report that online teaching tools have increased their overall efficiency. This is because they are able to organize the courses better, and they are also able to automate certain activities like periodic tests and quizzes and scoring. If you use an application like Sums gives you the ability to set up an online quiz, so the students can simply give multiple choice answers right there, and it becomes really entertaining for the students. So it's learning with fun. The another benefit of online teaching is diverse teaching experience. Online medium of teaching gives a teacher an opportunity, an experience to connect with students from different disciplines, backgrounds, and cultures. Online teaching can thus take the teaching experience from a regional level to a national, or even further, an international level. Another benefit is easier access and sharing of information. It's obvious that any study resource or information in digital format is very easy. Unlike like a traditional classroom where you're writing on the board, and people are taking down the notes. Here you can probably put the notes in a drive. Like, I know for sure that Sums gives you that ability, where you can
Right.
put the notes in the drive, and people can just download the notes from there. What that does is basically it reduces the Chinese whisper syndrome, wherein the notes are passed from one person to another, and it practically loses its essence and it becomes something else, right?
Yeah.
Another, sorry,
Yeah,
yes,
I completely agree. That is important to have.
absolutely. Another benefit of online teaching is student engagement. Now, this is a very important benefit. Online teachers report that online teaching incorporates more engagement between student and teacher. Unlike in a traditional classroom where shy students wouldn't raise their hand and ask questions, in online teaching they are very comfortable because they can interact with their teachers online. They're not shy and they're not worried about what the other students or other people will think. So this is practically come as a boon for shy students. And the most important benefit basically is increased student learning. As teachers ourselves, we understand that our basic concept is to make the students learn more. As we've seen in our previous slides, research shows that online teaching is directly linked to better knowledge transfer. And finally, the most important benefit is professional satisfaction of doing a job well done. So basically, we've understood that there are a lot of benefits of online teaching for not just students but teachers as well. All that is remaining is to understand how to set up a virtual classroom, isn't it, Bhavisha?
Yeah, I mean, now that we've established that online teaching is going to be something that is an activity that will continue for a lot of education institutes across the world, it is actually important to realize that as online teachers or as teachers, you need to be able to adapt to the online mode. Um, One of the fundamental differences between teaching, well, in a classroom and teaching online is the environment. So you're no longer in a classroom. So in order to inject back some normality, not just for you as professional teachers, but also for your students, it is important to bring in some familiar settings into the unfamiliar environment. One of the major problems and issues I think we've all experienced, whether we've been in teaching or even in business, is the fact that we have to face a lot of noise issues, noise control issues, and backdrop issues. So what I've done is, after speaking to a lot of my friends who happen to be teachers themselves back in the UK here, and of course in India, I've created an essential checklist which gives you the key elements for you to start converting your space into a virtual classroom space. One of the important things I think all of us need to take away as online teachers, or for those who are going to be teaching online, is to establish your own workspace. Have a dedicated room or an area within your home that is purely meant for you, that is free from any distractions such as television, radio, family members, and I guess even pets. And make this space your own workplace. This helps you define the barrier between professional life and personal life. Now, I know most of us must be thinking, okay, she's just told me to find a dedicated space in my home. But what happens when I have a small home or I've got multiple family members in that home? How do you cater to that? Well, the advice that I've given to a lot of my friends who happen to be teachers is that, even if it's your bedroom, find a little corner in your bedroom and make that your workspace. Have a little desk there, have a chair there, and just make it an area where you solely go to teach and prepare all your learning materials. That way it gives you that freedom to realize that even though I'm teaching in my bedroom, this specific area that I've just cornered off and I've just dedicated is purely meant for my professional life. And giving that advice has actually helped a lot of my friends take that on board. And it's actually given them a peace of mind and a sense of freedom that, yes, they've just walked into their professional life and they've just walked back into their bedroom to relax. Once, of course, you've found your dedicated space, set a backdrop, set the scene. Put some time and put some effort in creating and pinning up a backdrop which contains perhaps your institute's logo, or perhaps even some elements to inform the students what topics or what lessons you'll be covering with them today. I have a lot of teachers who like to get quite hands-on, so they're very much into the arts and crafts aspect. So what they do is they go above and beyond, creating dramatic virtual environments or virtual settings. And when their students come into their lectures or their classes, what they've noticed is that their students have changed their mindset. They now realize that I am connecting with my teacher, and it's not okay to start eating. It's not okay to start, dressing in my pajamas or in my casual clothes. And their whole behavior has actually changed. So establishing a backdrop means that you're pushing in some authority back to the students to help them realize that they're coming into a formal environment. Once, of course, you've set your settings and you set your backdrop, it's important to have the right equipment. And when we talk about equipment here, it's important to have a laptop or a computer to hold your classes. And one of the tips that I always say is try and invest in a larger screen computer or a laptop. Why? Because it will help you be able to see your students' reactions. So if you've got 60 or 30 or 20 odd students just logging in online on your class, you'll be able to see their faces and also see their engagement and their body language to determine whether they have been taught from you and they have understood what you have been teaching them. It also helps with you being able to navigate between the slides. Now, another essential thing is obviously having the right sort of video devices. Now that you're teaching online, it's important to make sure that you are seen and you are heard. So invest in a good quality webcam. Most laptops and computers nowadays come with their own webcam facilities, but I always think it's better to have a detachable webcam. That way you can change the settings of the webcam angle, move it around in order for you to be able to show exactly what you're trying to communicate to the students. This is particularly important for teachers who are, teaching dance or perhaps physical education or maybe even home economics sessions. So your students can exactly see your hand and body coordination. Vaibhav, you mentioned that, we had conducted some research with a lot of students back in Mumbai, and certainly I've been conducting them back here in the UK. And I think one of the biggest pain points we discovered from students was the fact that the reason why they sometimes attended classes and sometimes disappeared from classes was because almost 50% of them said that the most annoying thing about these online classes is the fact that our teacher doesn't have the right sort of headgear or audio settings to be able to deliver these classes. And that's why they switch off. So if you're listening and if you're, really wanting to make online teaching a success for both yourself and, of course, the students, then I would recommend having the right sort of headset with a microphone and a speaker that can really help you articulate and communicate what you're trying to say. I always think it's nice to have a headset which just has a nice microphone, so you don't need to worry about holding your earphones, the microphone that's on your earphone. And that way, if you are a person who needs to show something and you need your hands to be able to show something, you've got that freedom and that flexibility. I think, of course, having the right internet connection is important. Having good, solid internet connections is always a bonus. And I know that there are times where lessons can actually stand and go on a standstill due to internet drops. There are a lot of companies now that have realized that internet connection is important. And there are a lot of deals that are floating around, certainly here in the UK, and I'm sure they're floating around in Mumbai or across India. So it's important to actually look around the internet service providers and get the best deal, but most importantly, have reliable internet connection, which is, of course, secure. Once you have all your hardware aspects sorted, I guess the main fundamental aspect to really think about is the software that you'll be using to hold your classes. There are plenty of services out there, such as Zoom, such as Google Meet or Skype. But one of the biggest fundamental differences that I've certainly observed is the fact that whilst these facilities have, tried to adapt and give the teachers the best they can to be able to facilitate online teaching, they have their own limitations and they have their own drawbacks. products such as Sums is purely designed for giving teachers the best education that they can deliver. It has all the adaptabilities that one would need for you to quickly be able to transition from traditional classroom teaching to online teaching. And I know, Vaibhav, that towards the end of the session, our sponsor, the director of Sums, will actually be talking to us about how it can make a big difference to a lot of the teachers who are struggling to teach online. But, it's a good time to actually start looking at these types of products which are to do with educating online. Now, once you have everything set, it is really important to test your technology. No one wants to enter a classroom and suddenly they discover that they cannot be heard or seen. And then they spend half an hour or 20 minutes of their time trying to fiddle around to get their settings correct, whilst the students wait anxiously. And I always think it's always best to use your family or your friends that you have good relations with, because, well, they're the best critics. And it also gives you that confidence to be able to be online. I know a lot of teachers get nervous being online, being able to see themselves through a video. You have a lot of shy people out there, and it is important to realize that this is something that we all have to go through. So just having that confidence and practicing will give you that right sort of confidence you need to be able to teach online. I think one of the other things that we always take for granted is that electricity will always be around. And I know in India it can be a problem, especially when you're in monsoon season. There's always these scheduled power cuts, particularly in outer skirts areas or rural areas. And I've noticed that a lot of power cuts have happened, particularly this monsoon period. And one of the things that I've always said to my friends who actually live in Mumbai and teach there is that, one of the things that they say is they always keep their equipment charged because they never know when that connection's going to go. So they've actually started to prepare themselves in terms of their equipment. So it's important to keep your devices, such as your mobile phones or laptops, charged, and so you're ready to be able to deliver the best experience that you can. And I think,
Absolutely.
yeah, correct. Sorry, you were saying something there.
I was saying absolutely. It's very important, and sometimes we forget that we are supposed to charge our devices. We assume that the electricity is always going to be there, and I, for one, every time I am dependent on the electricity, it just betrays me.
In fact, you had one yesterday, if I remember.
I had it yesterday. Yes, that's true. Uh, Thank you so much, Bhavisha. You've told us what are the essential checklist for virtual classroom. And now that we've set up a virtual classroom, we got to also talk about the etiquettes of online teaching, because it is different than traditional teaching. So we don't know. We got to know how to behave in an online classroom. Correct?
Yeah, when we were doing this research, one of the things that we had certainly uncovered when we were speaking to both students and, of course, teachers is that from a teacher's perspective, I think they've started to realize that their students have become quite relaxed, I guess, in the way that they come into the classes. I've certainly had teachers coming up to me saying that some of their students turn up to classrooms in their pajamas and they're so relaxed. And I cannot think how embarrassing that it must be for a teacher to realize that I've spent X number of years studying to become an educator. I've spent X number of years teaching in a classroom, bringing discipline to my students, bringing a future career for them. And now they're becoming so relaxed that they've started to just turn up in their classes in pajamas. So it is really important to actually start establishing classroom etiquette. And after speaking to a lot of teachers, I've come to realize that you have an authority, you have the right to actually instill certain traditional classroom disciplines back into the online setting. And it's really important for you to be able to establish those classroom etiquettes. Otherwise, you'll never be able to deliver successful online sessions. And, one of the things to actually think about is once you've established the standard types of behaviors and disciplines that you want your students to adhere to, make sure that you communicate them to to the students, of course, and of course to the parents, so they help you bring their child in line. It's important now to actually expect your students to be on time. So make sure that they're on time and that nobody comes into your class late. And if they're going to be late due to, setting up equipment or perhaps even some internet connection problems, then there should be a designated number that they can contact you on to let you know. So that way you know as a teacher that your student is making that effort to actually help you, to help themselves be on time. Always inform your students to remain on mute once they enter into the room and unmute themselves if they want to speak. I think a lot of problems that occur at that point is students just enter the forum and they just start speaking. But I know that, depending on the age of the student, it can be hard to actually instill that discipline. So there are software solutions out there, like Sums, for instance, that can help the teacher control and turn off the audio settings of the students and then give them the ability to turn on the audio settings when they need to speak. I think the other fundamental important aspect to bring back in is, just like you would expect to see your students' faces when they come into the classroom in a traditional setting, it's important for you to be able to see your students' faces in an online setting as well. So make sure that they turn on their cameras. Now, I know a lot of parents and I guess some students might worry about their safety and their privacy. But that's okay, because what you can do is you have solutions out there that can help you see the child's face, see this child's body language, and just make sure that the camera is addressed to you. So you can have functionalities in place where only you are able to see the students' faces and the students cannot see their own faces. That way it helps you bring in that privacy, and it also gives the parents a sense of peace of mind, because they don't know who else could be watching their child. But more importantly, when it comes to online teaching, it is important for you as teachers to be able to see what your students are doing, whether they're actually paying attention to you, or if perhaps they have a worrying expression because they're too afraid to ask questions, in which case it will help you quickly eliminate that area and ask them the questions. I think the other important aspect to think about is making sure that the students that connect are, free from distractions, that they've connected with you in a quiet area that's solely dedicated to their learning time. That way, it helps you as teachers be able to check their understanding and ensure that they are purely listening to you. We've certainly had some funny stories when we've been talking to our team here, which I'm sure we can talk about later, but there have been incidences where students have been distracted, and it's just teachers have really struggled to be able to get that student's attention back into what they're teaching them. So it's important to make sure that the parent is aware of the fact that when they enter your classrooms, this child is sitting in an area that's purely dedicated for learning time. Of course, the other aspects to think about is, once students come onto your online forum, into your online class, make sure you instill some do not type of rules. So clearly communicate to the students that it's not okay to scribble on the whiteboard, unless of course they've been instructed to do so. Instill the fact that it's not okay to abuse the chat box facilities that are widely available nowadays, and for them to start having conversations with their friends in class. And one of the important things that I think it will help bring in and instill this discipline is actually start getting your students to wear their official school uniform. So even though they're logging in from online, make them attend your classes or make them attend school in their uniform, even though they're connecting with you in an online manner. Because again, this will give them that accountability and it will give them that discipline that they need, which will certainly help them moving forward in life. So as teachers, you're not just teaching them the theories of things, but also life skills that they will need in order to be able to secure jobs and have successful professional careers. So these are really our key golden rules for re-establishing classroom rules into an online environment. And it is something that, of course, you have the flexibility and the authority to instill. Once you have mapped everything out, I guess the only thing that you really need now are trips, and tips on how to actually teach online.
Absolutely, Bhavisha. We need to reprogram our style of teaching to become more effective. So here are some tips of teaching online. A couple of tips are that, first of all, you got to stick to your schedules. You got to avoid rescheduling or canceling classes unless and until it is unavoidable. You see, since us teachers are new to this kind of an online teaching environment, even the students are new to this. You know, they have had no experience about this. So we got to make them understand and instill some discipline. And we got to make this them understand that this is still school and that these are still classes. you know if we keep canceling our schedules and if we keep rescheduling our classes, then the students will become complacent and they will stop taking the classes seriously. The other thing that you got to do is you got to keep the class interactive. You got to ask a lot of questions. You got to make sure that you've set up clear instructions and etiquettes right at the start, and you've told them that, listen, there are no chorus answers. I'm going to ask a question to a particular person and only that person should answer. In case if you have a question, please raise your hand or please comment in the comment box. Another way of keeping the class very interactive is that you have a doubt solving. So right at the start, you tell the people that, listen, we're going to have a doubt solving session at the end of the class, um, so that the students are aware that their questions will be answered at the end of the class. you know in a traditional classroom, whenever we had a question, we would just raise a hand and or we would directly ask the question. But in an online classroom, that's not possible because that will just push the classroom towards chaos. Um, One way of doing this is that you set up a questionnaire before asking the question, before starting the class, and you deliver trainings in bite sizes. So you deliver a content for like 7 minutes and then ask questions. You select students and ask questions. Another way of doing this is that what you can do is you can have a list of troublemakers ready. So if there is somebody who sleeps during class, you know, make sure that you're asking that person a question at least once throughout the class. This way, the other students will be aware that the teacher is going to ask questions. So they will pay more attention. And the troublemaker will be aware that, the teacher is definitely going to ask questions to me. So they'll make sure that they don't go off to sleep. One more thing that you must do during online teaching is use the parking lot methodology. As I said, that it's very important to make them understand that all your questions will be answered. Another way of answering those questions is telling them that it might be possible that you have a question right now, but you can't wait till the end of the session because you might forget about it. So just park the question in the chat box, and we'll treat the chat box as a parking lot. And towards the end of the session, I will come back and answer those questions which are parked in the parking lot. And in case if you're unable to answer any of those questions, you can probably say that, don't worry, I'll answer that question in the next session. It's extremely important that no question goes unanswered, because that way, you break the morale of the students. It's extremely important that you change the style of teaching. It can't be the quintessential style of using a marker or a chalk on a blackboard. You got to incorporate presentations and videos. Now the problem with using your typical applications like Zoom and Google Meets and all of that them is that it gives you the ability to share your screen or tab. So when you want to try and show a particular video, you got to show the entire screen at least, and the students get distracted because there are other videos over there. So I know for sure that Sums gives you the ability to simply copy paste the URL of the video that you want to see or show the students. This way they are looking at that particular video, and they're concentrated and focused on that particular video. Um, Very important that you give assignments towards the end of the class, and I'll tell you why that is important. You see, watching a webinar or watching an online teaching class is kind of like watching a movie on Netflix or Amazon Prime. What happens is, for them, that's a web series or a movie, and they watch it and they forget about it. You got to make them understand that once you've gone through the class, you got to reflect on it. So what you do is you give them assignments or a questionnaire at the end of the class to force them and get into the habit of reflecting on whatever has been taught. Another benefit of the questionnaire is that when they answer those questions, they will realize that, oh, I have not understood this particular topic, or maybe I got disconnected while that topic was being taught. Then they can come back to the teacher and ask for a clarification. Or if you are using an application like Sums, it gives you the recording of the class. So you can just go back to the recording and look at the recording again. And the most important point is use appropriate app or software. Now, I know Google Teams and Zoom and all those applications are free, but they are designed for just video conferencing and video chatting. They're not designed for online classes. A lot many teachers that we spoke to while developing content for this webinar and doing our research, the teachers said that they end up working more at home than they used to in schools. That's because they don't have an app that is designed and that's there to help them do online education. If you use a different tool that you're not supposed to use for this, if you use a hammer in place of a screwdriver, it's not gonna make your life easier. In fact, it's gonna make your life even more difficult. So it's very important that you use the right application or software um, while you're doing online teaching. So these are basically the tips and tricks of how to teach online. I think it is time that we move on to answering the questions, and it's time to introduce our sponsor, the director of SUMS, Mr. Himanshu Modi. Hi, Himanshu. Hi. Are you able to hear us, Himanshu?
This is what we mean by those teacher hiccups.
Yeah, he's understanding.
Hi everyone, good evening.
Good evening, Himanshu.
Hi.
Before we move on to the questions,
Yes,
I would like to ask you a few questions and understand and get some feedback. You have been in this industry for quite some time. You know,
right.
what was the reason? Why did your team and your company develop an app like Sums? What was the requirement for that?
Okay. So what I see as a requirement in the school and colleges, because as I'm also a student, and after passing my means after finishing my schools and college, I don't have any platform at that time where I have all memories of my friends, school friends especially. Then if I want to see any result or any data which I had, for example, I want to see this class 6 result or class 7 result, I don't have it right now online. So I was thinking that, okay, so what type of platform we can develop and we can give to the students so they can see whenever they want to see their data, whenever they want to see their friends, they want to communicate with the friends after they finish the schools. So that's the reason we created this platform. And when we started this platform, then we are getting the different requirements from the schools and colleges, and then we enhance our softwares. And now you know that in pandemic situations, that schools are now virtually working virtually. So we have come out with this online e-class module where teachers can teach students easily. And in that we have added the special features for the teaching features. Like we have a whiteboard features where teachers can write anything, present anything, then they can share videos, they can view, and then we have a special recording feature in which you can see three different areas. Like you can see the whiteboard area, then you have a screen sharing area, then you can see that whatever the videos are there of students and teachers, that also you can see a separate area. So we have created a special recording feature, like of, okay, suppose I missed my class as a student, so after anytime I can see that recordings and I can understand. Even after understanding, I can write some questions if I want to ask. I can ask through our some applications. Okay, so that all modules we have developed, and this is how we've created or enhanced our application. And what we do, we get the requirements from the schools, and we understand that, and we enhance our software.
Absolutely. I have looked at the application and it looks like it's a one-stop shop solution for all the schools. The e-learning application is lovely, but it is just the tip of the iceberg. It has so much more. It has the accounts, that's the buses, the results, the schedule, all of that at one place. What
Right.
it basically does is that I remember when I was in school, transfer of information between school and parents was very less and very difficult. Sometimes students don't want to give that information voluntarily to the parents, or sometimes they forget to give that, and that creates problems. For example, I know for sure that one reason why my parents used to always shout at me is because whenever there used to be a project, I used to forget telling them. So let's say there is a science project on Friday and I'm supposed to create that project. I'll tell them about that on a Thursday. And then they used to shout at me that how am I supposed to help you create a project in one day? So I think an application like Sums, makes that transfer of information and that communication between parents extremely simple and easy.
Yes.
Bhavisha, another problem that we understood during our research while creating content for this webinar with students and with teachers is that they get so when teachers use an application like Zoom, they are supposed to give them a Zoom ID and a password to log in. Now that information is transferred towards the end, or sometimes we have examples where that username and password has been given 5 minutes before the class.
Yeah.
But that's not a very effective way of doing online teaching, is it?
No, it's not. And in actual fact, it causes more of a headache, especially when the parent has a lot of other things to manage and juggle with. So one of the things that I have seen some cater to is actually that particular problem. What we do in the software is we schedule all the classes ahead of time. So teachers already know when they're going to run their classes. They already know what times they're going to run their classes. So one of the elements that is available in SUMS is for teachers to actually simply just go in to the module and just set up all their lectures, all their classes, have it ready. And all students need to do is simply just click on the lecture at the date and the time that they need to attend, and simply they'll enter into the room. And it's a completely private room where there's no need to share links, no need to pass links. It's all secure in one consolidated forum. And I think that gives students the ability to simply manage themselves and simply know which area they have to be able to see what lectures they have that day, what classes they have that day, what times those classes are occurring, and simply just go in and log in.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. Himanshu, another problem that a lot of students highlighted or a lot of teachers highlighted while we were doing the research is that, because online learning is new, and because they switch on their cameras, and they are forced to switch on their cameras while the class is going on, students keep sending messages to each other and crack internal jokes, and
Yes,
they are able to see their reaction. Now a teacher cannot look at all the faces together, right?
right.
Is there a solution to that in sums?
Yes, we have a solution for that. So what we have added the features that teachers can allow students not to allow students to chat each another. So the students can allow to chat only to the teachers. And even we have one more features like when they start the camera, only teachers can view students individually, but student to student they won't able to view each other. So, so that features we have added because of these issues we are face our customers are facing, schools are facing. So we have added that feature immediately. So this is working fine. So now because of that now students are focusing more on learning instead of talking to each other or disturbing to each other, because it's not only talking or chatting with each other. Because when I message to some student, when I'm a student, I'm sending message to another student, he also gets distracted and disturbed. Okay, so that's the reason we added this type of features.
That is fantastic. Also, it also sensitizes online teaching, because you don't want your children to be exposed online. Correct.
Yes,
You never know who's watching them, so you
yes,
feel a little scared about that. This also sensitizes online
true,
education. Um,
true.
Pavisha, um, all businesses are moving towards automation and digitalization.
Mhm.
The reason why they're doing that is automation and digitalization makes their lives easier, productivity gets increased, and reduces the time. Shouldn't schools move towards online digitalization and automation like other corporates? Wouldn't that increase their productivity and let teachers concentrate on their real job, which is knowledge transfer?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I have a friend of mine who is actually a head teacher here in one of the colleges in the UK, and we were just having a candid conversation the other day, and it was quite surprising that they forgot that they were actually running a business themselves. I think a lot of teachers or head teachers forget the fact that a school, an education center itself, whether that's a university, a college, or perhaps even just a primary school or a high school, is in fact a business. And I think a lot of the time now gets taken up with administrative work. So the teachers have to do a lot of admin work rather than pay attention to building the right sort of materials they need to be able to educate the children or the students that they're teaching. And that's a lot of complaints that I've certainly been hearing And just by speaking to my friend, what she was saying is even her teachers that she's got in her school have started to complain to her that why are we doing all this admin work when we have better roles to actually build better curriculum to teach students. So we do need facilities out there specifically tailored for education institutes. And looking at sums and hearing about sums and even seeing sums, I think a solution like this is actually what is going to get the education industry across the globe back into focus of delivering high quality teaching and learning that is required.
Thank you so much, Bhavisha. Himanshu, not
Mhm.
we've understood that applications like this, and especially sums, what it does is it reduces the cost of governance, it reduces the time that it takes, and increases productivity. Another benefit of sums is that I have been a corporate trainer for around 9-10 years now. I've been in this industry, I've grown to become a manager, but I have trained myself and managed this industry. I've been part of larger organizations like Capita and Reliance Industries, and I'm
Mhm.
inside them now. All of these institutions and all of these organizations have a learning and management team, learning and development team.
Right.
All of these people, when they pass out their colleges and join these organizations, they have to go through training. Training
Yes.
and learning is part of our professional lives till the time we retire. I mean, we've trained CEOs and MDs as well, so that is
Right.
part of our culture. When you join such larger institutions, most of these teachings are or trainings are done on a learning management system. If we start teaching them online learning management system like sons, wouldn't they be more prepared towards their future and more prepared to adapt that learning management system that is taught in corporates?
Okay, so we have also got some leads and some customers also there. They are into corporate trainings. Okay, so now we have one customer who is focusing on stock marketing. So they have it's a JSK Finance, and so they are using our application to train their employees who they are into stock market and they are using these applications. Okay, so we are also getting this type of because in here we are specially designed for learning and LMS
Right.
type of model. So it's learning management system. It's not like meeting module. It's a full phase of a suite where they have everything in one place. Okay, so this application are used by schools, not only schools, colleges, but this type of corporate trainers are also using this our application.
Absolutely. And when you start using these kind of applications while you're in school, when you grow and join an organization, you can adapt to their learning management
Yeah.
system even
Easy,
easily.
easy.
Right? It becomes
Yes,
easier for me. That transition becomes very smooth.
easy, easy.
And in turn, I learn a lot. And so basically, the only people who grow in these organizations are the ones who learn their job as quickly as possible,
Yeah.
right? The ones who learn them late stay back. And don't we
Right.
want our children to grow as quickly as possible in their lives?
Mhm.
Bhavisha, what is the feedback been in where you are, that is in UK?
Well, I've had a lot of candid insight from the education industry here. Um, a lot of teachers are struggling with instilling that classroom discipline that they had um, back on in the online mode. I know that it's September now, so schools will generally start to open, but it's changed its landscape completely. Not all students are actually going to be coming into the class. In fact, most of them will be joining online. So this online teaching is something that teachers will have to continue to adopt and maintain. And I think one of the pain points that teachers have said is that they're fed up of constantly having to admit a child into class. And what they've also forgotten to do amongst all this stress is actually record their sessions. So they're always asking or looking for ways where they can create a classroom which automatically just records their lesson. That way, their students who have missed out due to illness or absenteeism can have an area where they can look at those recordings again. And I think, Himanshu, you have developed something like that in SUMS, where the classes and the lessons are automatically recorded.
Yes, it's auto recorded. Yes, it's auto recorded. So by
And,
default, recording is on. On. Yes.
and where does the recording go? Is there like a central area that students can watch all that recording?
So yes, it's a school central area, and when students want to see any lectures recording, so they can go to the lectures, previous lectures, and then they can view the recording of that lectures. It's a simple date-wise, subject-wise, they can filter and they can view the recording of the previous lectures.
So yeah, Vaibhav, having things like this will certainly help teachers here in the UK, and I'm sure it's a pain point even in India, where the company is based. So it is important in that respect.
Thank you, Bhavisha. I think it's high time that schools understand the fact that education is going online and at least it is getting digitalized. We just still stuck with the fact that, oh, what happens when Corona goes and the schools reopen? Well, the schools might reopen and the students might come back in the classes, but online education is here to stay. Secondly, applications like Sums are not just applications like Zoom where you just do online webcam, web chat, and all of that. Sums has so much more. It is here to basically make your life easier, and it is here to improve your productivity like any other corporate. Soon other schools will take, and been, I'm sure Himanshu's been getting a really good response about sums. And when
Yes.
schools, your competitor schools, keep getting these applications, when parents have better access to their schools, they're getting all the feedback because parents want to know what their students are doing. I mean, their
Right.
children are doing at school,
Right.
right? When your competitor schools keep buying these applications and start using them, you got to move on with time as well, and you got to buy applications like that. And these applications are not very effective I mean, not very expensive as compared to the effect and the value that they add to the school, because they
So,
save a lot of cost, they increase their productivity, and
right.
they increase knowledge transfer.
Right.
So thank you so much for the answers, Bhavisha and Himanshu, and especially Himanshu. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for sponsoring
Thank you.
this webinar. I think it was extremely important for the teachers to understand how to do online teaching. Um, Thank you, viewers, to watching this webinar, and I hope this was effective for you all. We will be coming up with more webinars to make your life easier and give you more knowledge about how to teach effectively, because the learning never stops. Thank you so much, and have a good
And
evening.
and one more thing I need to say that from the next webinar we are also introducing free goodies. So just stay tuned with us.
I, for
So
one, love the
yeah,
goodies.
yeah.
Thank you, Himanshu and
Thank you.
Bhav.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.